to introduce Marc Lijour, and I'm asked to make sure you're all in the right room. So this is the Open edX presentation. Anyone want to move? Okay. So Marc's the Ontario representative of Savoir-Faire Linux, and prior to joining Savoir-Faire, he worked at Cisco, and then a fairly long career as an Ontario public servant, working on K-12 education, and his degree, or one of his degrees, is from down the road at Ryerson, and the other one from Paris. So I assume it's bilingual, but I'll stick to English. Okay, so I'm proud to present Marc, and good luck.
Thank you. So the talk is in French or English?
English, but it's a bit difficult to get hold of because I've not been here long enough.
So by popular demand, we'll do it in English, unless
so.
The audience wants something else. Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, just one other thing. Could I ask you, when you ask a question, can you sort of shout it? Because then everyone hears both the question and the answer. Okay, thank you.
You can keep it. Thanks. Right, so good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for sharing this time with us today. So I'm Marc. I'm a director of Savoir-Faire Linux in Toronto for Ontario. And it's a celebration for us to be here for many reasons. First, because we are a free software and open source company at the core that's been out there for 16 years. And so we love free software. We're a big supporter of free software. And we are happy to sponsor the conference. And I want to congratulate the great work that the Seneca community has been doing over the years. So as we were saying, I have also a background in education. I helped the province launch e-learning in K-12. And so I'm very fond of the learning management system and the sector. And it just happens that my company, Savoir-Faire Linux, is working on a project with a university in Quebec to port Open edX to OpenStack, to do some kind of open source magic there. So I was in Boston a couple of weeks ago, and I was, for the first time, I had a chance to mix and mingle with the Open edX community to hear their talks, and I said, well, you guys should really be coming to Seneca to present Open edX, because it's a great thing, and because the Seneca logo was on one of their slides, I thought it would be more than a great opportunity. Unfortunately, nobody could make it, so they were good enough to share the slides, and I volunteered to talk a little bit about Open edX. So by no means I'm an expert in Open edX itself, but I'm gonna be very close to this project as it goes forward. But if you have questions on LMSs and things like that, I can answer that. And if you want more details about the project, Jonathan and the team is in the refreshment area, and Jonathan is going to talk a little bit more about OpenStack in the next hour, so if you want to attend that as well. So a couple of clarifications have been corrected by the MIT Open edX team on the description that I submitted for the conference. A couple of things. First, they are not comfortable with the idea of publishing communicating that Open edX would be a replacement for a learning management system like a Blackboard or Canvas or so forth. They like to integrate to a learning management system, so that's one. And the second one, I think I didn't make it clear that Open edX is not an MIT project per se. edX started at MIT and Harvard. We're going to talk about that. And it's not an independent organization that looks after Open edX. So these were for the record, for the clarification. So let's talk a little bit about Open edX. If there is one takeaway from this project is that Open edX is a venture to go and educate 1 billion people. So we're talking about making education accessible, affordable, collaborative, and of increasing quality, of course. The CEO of edX, Anand Agarwal, I think was just promoted to do some work at the international level. I think it's the United Nations, so it's certainly a thought leader and a change maker. What is edX? Let's start with the edX piece of Open edX. So edX is 3 different things. First of all, it's a non-profit venture. So it's a company, it's people, collaboration, community, people that are working on it. The second thing that it is, it's a website. The website is edX.org. And it's also a platform. What you have to differentiate is edX and Open edX. edX is comes from the MOOC ventures. So the MOOCs are massive open online courses. So we heard a lot about MOOCs back in 2012, if you remember. New York Times said that 2012 was the year of the MOOC. There was a surge in companies doing MOOC. You had Udacity, Coursera, and edX, of course. You had courses, for example, Sebastian Thurn from another group launched a course online. He had more than 150,000 students in the course. So when we talk about massive courses online, we're talking about not tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands of students, maybe more, in a single course, in a single term, concurrently. So that's massive. So how do you make that work? Well, you have obviously a lot of automation going on. You have a scalable platform that allows people to collaborate. And you have also a platform that makes it easier to put your courses online and to collaborate. And we're going to talk about that. The concept of MOOC, though, is not, that did not start in 2012. And as Canadians, we can be proud to say that the term of MOOC has been coined in Canada. In 2008, a group of Canadian researchers, Dave Cormier, George Siemens, Stephen Downs, they were working on a course for the University of Athabasca on connectivism, which is a big thing for George Siemens. So the whole idea is that instead of just, there are different ways of learning. One way is I'm taking a book, I'm reading a book, maybe I memorize a book, and then I can repeat it to the content, what I learned to someone. I can repeat it to a teacher, I can maybe write something on the paper, and the teacher or the professor is going to say, well, you learned the course, you pass. There are other ways of learning. When we are born, we don't know how to read, and we don't learn English or French or the mother tongue just by reading a book. We learn by talking to people, we learn by picking up things, looking at the context, making connections with people, associating concepts, patterns with emotions, with movements. We learn making things, back to Ruth's keynote earlier. And so the idea of making those connections and learning through connections opens to a new theory of learning. So connectivism is such theory. To talk about connectivism, rhizomatic learning, and the idea was to launch a course online that would make it easier for professors and students to connect, to start to build those links and these connections to make learning happen. This came the term MOOC, and we had many types of MOOCs out there. So you have people doing their own MOOCs, maybe in their class, maybe at Seneca, somebody would be using, I don't know, a Flipboard, Twitter, YouTube, and kind of mix and match more things, and telling students or encouraging students to collaborate so that's a kind of the same idea behind this. So you're kind of learning from each other, collaboration, discussions. Now, when you get to this stage of having 100,000 people in a course, the next question is, how do you coordinate, right? So other questions. So how do you, as a professor, how do you pick up, who's doing well, who's doing less well, who should I help first? How do I assess that many people? So these are the technical questions at the core. So all these great universities now are doing MOOCs. And it's also a way for a university to be part of a club, to be honest, to promote their services. MOOCs have not been monetized yet, really. It's not a huge source of revenue, but it's a source of reputation. And it's also a good step toward accessibility of learning. So there was this story of a kid in Mongolia, 15 years old. It's all open out there, so just takes a computer, go take a course, and ends up on the top of the class and ends up winning a scholarship to one of these Ivy League engineering universities in the US. So great opportunities by making learning open. So what are the goals of edX? So reaching 1 billion students, increasing the quality of education, increasing access, obviously, and also improving on-campus education. So what if we could use those tools that are available for e-learning to enhance the learning that's happening in-house? So if a tool is that good, why not use it for regular classroom, right? So that's what people have started, or campuses have started to do. It's probably what also Seneca is thinking when they launched their Open edX project here. The other piece of it is, since you have all these interactions happening online, you have a lot of data. You have data, who's talking to who, how do students perform, how fast they perform, but also data on the course content. When a video is watched only 3 seconds and then everybody drops, there may be something wrong with the way the video is designed. So you get a lot of data on what's happening in a course, and you can crunch the number and based on this data make these informed decisions to improve the course and to help students. And the holy grail is to help students on real time. The faster you know how things are going, the faster you can focus your efforts. Now, so that's the website for edX, so pretty easy. So what's the history there? So started in 2011, MIT, Harvard, a lot of people from the computer science department that are doing pretty good on the technical side, start developing this platform. 2012 comes very fast. It's the year of the MOOC. Everybody's out there. edX is not the group that got the most students, but they're going fast. And then something happens in 2013. I will come back to that later. But there is a group inside MIT that's very pro-open source. The edX framework is based on Python. And they ended up open sourcing the platform, which probably helped also moving the numbers. But the numbers of MOOCs, of courses themselves, keep growing. And by last month, you had about 5 million students taking courses on the platform. That's quite a significant number. So these are some screenshots to see, okay, what is this edX thing? What does it look like? What does the platform look like? So here's, your course. You can embed videos. All these things that you embed, like videos, they're inside of blocks that can be reused. And they are also that you can pull from repositories, like a learning object repository or another learning management system. And you have the ability to connect those different systems through protocols like LTI or things like that. So interactive media, you have the ability to do tests, questions, and answers, and have some hints in there. You have the ability to, the next one is a GIF. So it takes a lot of memory. Sometimes it lags a little bit. So you can put any kind of app in there and get the data for it. You have discussion boards. You have also essay types of questions where people can write essays and long things. And the way the courses are designed are pretty familiar, probably to you. It's a course, it's like a book, course, chapter, modules, unit, and so forth. And there is a nice little interface for professors to create multiple choice questions just very simply just by typing things in there, which is very important. You have two things on the system, on the platform. One is the learning management system for students to consume courses and interact. And the other piece is the studio, where professors are going to upload their courses, design their courses, combine resources. So these are obviously the two sides of the coin. So what about Open edX now? So Open edX is the platform that is used to run the courses online through the edX program. And it's been open sourced, which that's where comes the word open edX. So Open edX is a project to build a platform for a community. So the team think, how do we grow to 1 billion students? How we make these platform more democratic and say, well, there is no choice, we have to open source it. And they are pretty happy by the decision they make. In September, I was there. You have huge community of companies. Some of these are universities that are, fund, for example, the French to the platform at national level. And they made it their national MOOC infrastructure. So you have, if you will, customers or community of users that are taking the platform and making their own. But you have also companies like, of course, we are there. But Seneca is there, by the way. You have also some companies that are there to provide the support that is needed to make things work. When you have a problem, you can call someone. So Open edX is a platform. It's been open source not so long ago, about 2 years ago. You have documentation on it. You are going to give you some links. There are forums. There's code on the GitHub. There is a mailing list. There is a lively community. There is an ecosystem of companies, people you can call. And you have books online. So you can actually go to a library, buy a book, and learn how to do your courses in edX. So information is out there. The idea to open source was actually to open source by December of 2013. What made them speed up a little bit is when Stanford said, well, Stanford is a big university, you know that. So when Stanford came and said, we want to use Open edX, but we want it to be open source, then it kind of, it was like the catalyzer. It made things move way faster. So basically, they went twice as fast, cleaned up the code, open sourced everything. So the licensing, so is it free software? Is it open source? Is it both? It's kind of both. The team made the decision to license the core platform as free software with a very solid free software license, an AGPL. So the idea is that everything that's happening in the platform, everybody is encouraged strongly to contribute back to the platform. So when, for example, France has been developing something like a module or an extension of the code, then everybody in the community benefits for it. Now, the team also wanted to encourage third-party provider. That could be a publisher, could be a small company doing serious gaming. They wanted to encourage these people to contribute and to add to the value, because learning online is not just about the platform and click things. It's about the content, right? What kind of video I'm going to find there, what kind of courses. So they wanted to make very easy for people to contribute. For this reason, they use a permissive license, the Apache license, to allow people to be a little bit more protective with their intellectual property. So it doesn't affect what's happening in the core platform, but it allows more people to participate the way they want. And it's all pretty clear. They have a very nice and clear upfront licensing page, so you know what you're going for. So a couple of examples. So that's the famous Stanford MOOC page. You can check it out. It should be up there still today. You have, this one is also very interesting. It's Chinese from, I'm not going to adventure myself pronouncing that name here, but it's a very, very huge implementation. It's very nicely done. You have this French one, which is a little more familiar to me, closer to home. And basically, anyone could take the Open edX platform, run them on their laptop, on some kind of servers, and use it for anything they'd like. If you want to do some community training, if you want to do any kind of course, technical course, whatever, it's out there for anyone to take and to use the way they think it should be used. So a lot of people have actually been using this for many, many, many different courses. Now, so that was an April Fool's joke, but I think it makes the point. So this PETX doesn't exist. But I think it makes the point that you could use it for virtually anything you'd like. So where is it used? It's used in pretty much everywhere except Africa, apparently. But a caveat there is the team doesn't know who is using it because they have no way to keep track of who downloads it and where people are actually running it seriously in some kind of big way. So they're asking anyone that is using Open edX to actually ping them back and let them know what's happening. But even though they have a hard time keeping track, there is a pretty wide implementation use globally. So Chinese, French, and English are the top 3 languages. And that's where there is a lot of activity right now. But obviously, it's out there for people to use. Could be used in any language. You have more than 150 sites right now, 18 languages. And it's just started. That's only 2 years after it's been open source. So what's in there? So can you raise hand if you have any technical background or if you're interested in technical things? Who's a tech person in there? Don't be shy. Okay, great. We have some tech people. So what's in there? Well, it's an architecture that's like a div or like modules that falls into other modules. So it's pretty clean. The core of it is the X block. And the X block is like a div in HTML or an iframe. So it's something that contains pretty much anything you'd like. The X block can connect to data out there, can connect to services. There is a little runtime. It's Python. So it's pretty modern language. It's pretty nice to work with. There is a huge community in Python, which makes it great. I think they're using Django as well. So all the kind of, for example, you can use Mongo database, MySQL, other open source technologies that you guys would be familiar with. And there is a nice way to connect your own code, extend it. So here are the things that the system does now. Registrations, profile cohorts, reporting, progress, wiki, translation, theming. So pretty much the core features that you would expect in a learning management system if you think, I don't know what you have here, other than OpenEdX, maybe a Blackboard or maybe...
Blackboard's the
okay.
primary.
All right. So we
also use Moodle.
Okay, great. Great, so open source is also there. Yeah, so when you think about LMS, is really about a way to store files, contain them in courses, manage with the student, with the teacher, when they take who has access to what, and how do you submit your assignments. Right? So pretty much the basics is already implemented in the system. Now, I was referring to the different modules or the different sides of OpenEdX. You have the learning management system we're just talking about, and you have the studio, which is the tool professors use to build their courses, which is very important because if it's really hard to upload a course, then you're not gonna find a lot of courses in the system. And they most likely be very, very tedious. And the other third piece I didn't talk about is the analytics piece. And this piece, the infrastructure is there, and there is a lot of development going on there. We found a lot of universities interested in building on top of that. They are doing some very interesting things, like real-time updates. So you can, on a MOOC, like hundreds and thousands of students doing things, downloading things at different time. You can have a dashboard and say, okay, what is the top video this watch right now? Where are students in terms of completing their assignments? And it's a very, very hard thing to do. If you look a little bit at the technology used, it's the same kind of technology you use for big data. There's a lot of data you have to sort out, and how do you search efficiently in there? They're using Kibana, Elasticsearch. So a lot of great, great technology you have out there. So it's an exciting project for that, as well as it uses the fanciest and the most advanced technology of the day. So how do you extend OpenEdX? The whole point of having an open source code is that it's yours to use, but you can flex it the way you want. Oh, I'm using Moodle or Blackboard. I want to use Moodle, Blackboard for that thing that it does well, and I want to use this OpenEdX thing for other things I want to do that this thing doesn't allow me to do. And there's plenty of ways to connect these two and to build on top of it, to create new features that don't exist yet. And the magic behind this is mostly the X block. So that's when you add your own thing within a a course page. Could be a video, could be a game, could be anything you like that consumes data or services. And you have LTI. So LTI, so XBlock, it is something created in OpenEdX. It's their concept, their architecture. LTI is a protocol built or designed by an organization called IMS. And it's an industry standard that most learning management systems, which means almost all of them in North America, are using. Desire to Learn, Blackboard, Moodle, you name it, they're all using some version of LTI. The kind of things LTI allows you to do, for example, is to plug a gradebook to it. So gradebook, pardon my French, but gradebook sucks a lot of time in the learning management system. Big time, I'm hearing big time. You have some very good gradebooks out there that people just want to use. How do we connect these two? How do we pass the data without compromising security, student privacy? So there is a way to connect these two systems efficiently. So the X block, I'm going to pass a little bit, faster on that one. It's behind the scenes. It's a Python class. It's a Python package. You can look at it. If you're a Python coder, then you're going to be at home because it's just one of these classes. So it just behaves the way you expect a Python class to work. It stores data, the states, access to front end, the way you expect exactly. So what about the community? The community is growing. So the community is the number of people that are using OpenEdX. So some of them will be using vanilla OpenEdX. Some of them will be extending OpenEdX, bending it to their needs. So you're going to find national implementation, France, China. You're going to find some local implementation, like in Spain. There's I think it's Madrid University. They're doing some very fancy things in automating the creation of courses in one hand, and how they move students, and the way they give badges, and you can bend the system to the way your university operates, versus having to deal with a proprietary solution that tells you how you should use their system. You own it. So not only you own the software, but also you own the way you do your business. And that's what makes it quite popular. So who are you? Who are the people in the community? The people that want to, that have some ideas about how to operate their business. If they have no idea, they probably be buying something or asking somebody what you should do. They need the tools, and they need flexible tools. This is the team. So I have to say big thanks, because these slides, so far, they're not mine. They've been provided by Joel and Ned. These guys are just awesome. It's a very small team. Molly is a great community manager. They all have a great technical background. There are other people behind the scenes that work on different things, like they're working a lot in analytics and big data, and they want to be working on predictive analytics and see what's kind of helping, providing more help and more engagement in the platform. So it is all happening. So big thanks to them. And now, if you have any question, you can talk to them directly. You have to call me. These are the latest community development. So thinking about what are people adding to the platform. So these are some examples. So Harvard contributed the LTI integration. They're working on that. And there's a plus there because it's not just Harvard, but they happen to be leading that project. So there's a group there working on that. OpenCraft, which one of their partners actually at Savoir-Faire Linux, they're working on single sign-on. Single sign-on is, as a student, I don't want to type my name and password every time I log to a system, right? So logging to university once, I want to access all the software available at the college, whatever my organization is. So it's pretty nice. And they're also working on some third-party authentication. So what if I could log in with my Google account, or my Twitter account, or my OpenID account, whatever. You have this hinting thing that means that you start typing something wrong, it starts telling you, well, maybe there's something wrong there, you should pay attention. There is grading, there is polling, there is a bunch of very interesting things. There is a long list. One of the projects that I found really interesting is one about learning paths. So what if you could suggest a student to actually learn in a personalized way? You know, when you have a book, you have chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, some people would read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Some other people would like to jump to chapter 10, do some exercise, maybe go back to chapter 3, right? So we could suggest that. So there's some people working on this. It's exciting. So this is the example of LTI integration I was talking about. The video is, and you can take a lot of data from videos. You can get data from an external system and pipe it in. And you can get data on how users interact here and pipe it back. This is a screenshot of the single sign-on. So OpenCraft is using SAML and Shibboleth. They could use OAuth, the Google protocol, to do single sign-on. You have different technologies. The key is you log in once, then you can access to everything you like. This is the hinting thing. And these are the links. If you're interested, please do follow, do go to Twitter and check what's going on there. Go to your IRC client and hook up with the community there, or go and check the code if you can't wait to see Python in action. And if you have any question, we're gonna be here for a little too, so you can talk to us. So the next question is, what the heck are we doing here? Like, what is Savoir-Faire Linux? How do we come? We've been involved with that. It just happens like, so the company is very active in Quebec and has been working with a lab in a university in Quebec. And this lab is, or this university is very much involved with distance education and they have been for a long time. And they chose OpenEdX as a platform, and they want to do a lot of development on it. And it's an academic lab, so they do a lot of changes, the testing, and they go back and forth. And obviously, they have that scale. So they came to Savoir-Faire Linux and say, can you help me put a modern development tool chain and integration, continuous integration tool chain for my developers and my students to use OpenEdX to work on it? Can you help me scale up and down with some kind of the cloud technology? So Savoir-Faire Linux is going to work on that. So there are some specific things on the platform we're going to look at. Porting edX basically to OpenStack and helping them with their integration. So OpenStack is, you probably heard about it this morning. Jonathan is going to give another talk later, just after this hour. I think it's in the other room, but he's going to go in deep depth on OpenStack. So it's a way to basically take your data center and help you to consume it as a service. Without being an IT guy, you just go up there, I want this, you get it. As simple as that. So there is some kind of convergence, and there is some kind of software that tells the computer what to do behind the scenes. And that's as far as I will go on OpenStack. I want to spend more time on what exactly we do there. So we are helping programmers improve on OpenEdX. So this is our team, and this is our team at the university, not our team, but the customer team, the lab, the research lab at the university. And they are going to be contributing to modules. They're going to be improving OpenEdX. So we help them with code review so that they can collaborate on coding efficiently together. So how do you establish the practice, but also the methodology, but also tools that you need to work efficiently on the same code. We're going to obviously connect it to Git. That's going to be the main repository. So we automate the merging here. And we had the team, also once they're happy with the code, we had them move the code upstream. So they're going to be contributing patches up to the OpenEdX platform. And they're going to be syncing back, because that's the beauty of open source, is that everybody is kind of working on the same big thing. So you're working on a little tiny 1% here, you're doing great things, and you're contributing this back up, and everybody benefits. And then you look back to the repository up there, and you start syncing back, and you get 99% that the other people have been working on, and you downstream it to your platform. Now the problem is this 99% going to break your thing? So this is where the open source also has tools to deal with that. So we had this team of researchers establish a two-way communication there to merge their code efficiently, basically. We're also setting them up with some continuous integration, some automation, and so the code is easily deployed on the dev and prod servers. All right, so this is what the continuous integration is doing. Then we are helping them put that on top of OpenStack. And there are some things already working on OpenStack. Some things are a little tricky to make it work. edX has been developed to work on top of Amazon Web Services. So you still find things that are still kind of little hard-coded to Amazon Web Services, like object storage is a good example. So our team is going to work on that too. So we remove dependencies to Amazon Web Services. So down the road, people want to actually take OpenEdX and move them to their OpenStack, then they can do it very easily, just go straight. And that's the story. That's the story. So who are we? So I get the right to do my 1 minute about exactly who are these guys again? So we're a company based in Quebec. About 100 people, and we're expanding. We're ISO certified, so more than technology and open source, which is technology is the easy piece. We help people with their processes. We bring methodology, and where do you find the best and most innovative technology? You're going to find it in the open source world. So that's where small companies and big companies, we're talking, Microsoft or big companies like that, they're looking at Savoir-Faire Linux as a little bit of the disruptor. So they brought us in when they want to have their team think differently and innovate with very leading edge technology. So we have some of the world experts on some of these technologies we are talking about. And these are some of our clients like Hydro-Québec, the government of Quebec. You're going to find, so TFO is from Ontario. That's a good one. And we're expanding geographically. So we have an office in Paris since probably last year. And today we're opening in Toronto. And we're happy to have you. So we're all about innovation. We help companies innovate and leverage the power of collaboration. So the whole world of software is everybody works at their desk on their little silos, on a little black box. And we're bringing the knowledge of the collaborative intelligence and the knowledge how to deal with that of open source to the business world. That's what we do. And I'm your guy in Toronto. If you have any questions, I'm here. And Jonathan is there for the tough questions on OpenStack. I'm going to get you down here to answer the tough question. Any questions?
Marc,
yes.
You mentioned that Seneca has been involved with edX.
Please.
And we thought we'd take 5 minutes and tell you a little bit about that. And we've got as part of our development team, our research assistants, we'd like to tell you a little bit, and it's one of the areas that Marc talked about, and that's specifically in terms of data collection, processing, and tracking students. And doing some predictive analytics. We're not there yet, but we're building all of the pieces to get there. So
I'd love to hear about it, so please.
and let's just hear a short piece of a particular group. And there are many groups, some in Canada, but many in the US, and the UK, and around the world, who are involved in various pieces of development
Nice meeting you.
for open
Nice
edX.
meeting you.
So we give the presenters a small gift, so I'd like just to give this now. I assume you guys have got some setup to do, or are you talking off the top? Okay, well, excuse me.
Thanks so much. So all you guys are witness, eh? I got it. Thank you so much.
Hi everybody, my name is Paul, this is Phil. What we're working on is an actual aviation course, and we're building our own XBlock to allow us to collect a lot more complex data from edX. So there's things like interacting with instruments from the planes that we need to capture, and we've built our own front-end platform that does that, and we'll send it up to the back end. And then Phil is working on the back end, so.
Yeah, so we, XBlock, as Mark said, that's the tool within the edX, which allows us to play with edX and create anything that we want. So what we do is we're collecting the information from the front end by using the JSON. Like based on the JSON file, we're creating the front end, and then collecting that and storing in the database. We can make our adaptive learning algorithm, and based on that, we can predict how well the learner can act on the on a specific course. In terms like, let's say you have a course which consists of different modules, and in the middle of the course, we already know will the learner proceed course well, or he will fail it. So he'll get, let's say, based on these marks, he'll get a pop-up or display or anything, which will suggest him to go back to specific module and review the course, or he might want to proceed anyway. Yeah, so.
So the idea is what Mark was talking about as a learning path. So we're trying to collect enough information for us to be able to predict if the user is going to be successful in the course or not. And if they already know a certain material, we can suggest them to skip a chapter that probably they already know to save them time. And if we know that they're going to probably fail the last exam or the last test, then we'll send them back to a chapter that we know they're not comfortable with and have them review it. So that's basically the adaptive learning part of our project.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
I'm the first, then there is another one there. How easy was it for you to start with OpenEdX? Like, was it a lot of work? Like, can you tell us a little bit about that? How do you get in there?
I think when we started working, it was a little harder with documentation. Like right now, there's a lot more documentation available, so it does help us a lot as we go on. We find a lot of new things, new information that we can use. At first, it was very difficult, but actually right now it's a lot easier, a lot faster to set your environment up and get XBlocks to work.
Yeah, because we created our own documentation, and now we we had a lot of issues with the connecting databases and stuff. How would you do this? How would you do that? And then based on like clicking up any documentation on OpenEdX, we had to went over our own mistakes and figure out how to do that. By now, I would say we can do anything, like 99% that you would possibly think about it, we can do with the XBlock so far. Any
advice very quickly before we move to the question? Any advice like somebody, like for someone in the audience would like to jump in, what's your advice? Where should they start?
Well, just have a good internet connection when you're trying to install edX. Because we spent hours and hours trying to reinstall edX over and over again because the Wi-Fi here at Seneca would drop the connection, and then you're like, oh, I'm missing a ton of file, I'm not sure why. And that's probably the reason why. Otherwise, yeah, just read the docs, everything is out there right now.
Yeah, and the, since it's an open source community, they might have some mistakes and issues with the documentation. And like me personally, I found out like when I was updating the edX to the last version, like the Cypress, I had an issue with deleting the course, like manually, because they structurized it differently, and then I had to like submit the documentation, the review and stuff there, because you couldn't do it with the old documentation that they had. So yeah.
And use the IRC, right? You have live people behind it. And what I've been hearing is that they're very responsive, so I never tried it myself, but that's what I heard. There is a question from the back.
Well, my question for you, Mark, who's the university you're working with in Quebec? What location?
Well, off the record, right? Because we're not being taped here. It's it's Tele University of Quebec, La TELUC.
In Montreal.
I hope they don't mind. I think they don't mind if I share that.
Well, then I could ask a question to here in Seneca, are you getting that data now? This is a live system, or are you still building it?
Yeah, we're working on that, but yeah, I'm collecting the data right now, so I can have the access and I can retrieve the data from the front end and all the content based on the library that Paul created. Yeah.
But you're accumulating data, you're not yet built the algorithm.
Yeah.
Well, it's not, the course isn't live yet.
Oh, okay.
We're just testing to make sure that we can accumulate data properly,
Okay.
and hopefully we'll be launching it by the end of this year.
Thank you.
There was a question here.
Could you comment on how you achieve the marking? Presumably there is some marking. So sort of in general, but more in particular, do you give sort of quizzes, multiple choice, or do you handle anything beyond that, like essays or program code?
At this time, it's a bit simpler. What we're working on is multiple choice and interacting with the instrument panel inside the plane. So we're not going as complex as analyzing words and code, yeah.
Great. Another question?
Are there any examples of private corporations or governments that are using OpenEDX to do employee staff training?
It's a good question. There is none that I can think about, that I know about. But we'll never know for sure who's using it because they don't have to say. But that you could ask the question to the team there. Other question? I can see, and back to your points. I think in the corporate sector, there's a lot of needs for training, and as these tools are growing, they're open source. Why not using them? It makes tons of sense. And if you're an entrepreneur out there, if you're like these guys, if they wanted to build their own company, then maybe there's market waiting for them there.
Well, the course that is under development is being looked at in the UK as a re-qualification course for active pilots. So it's moving in that direction, but we're really talking about very, very, very early days of a learning management system.
Ali?
I'm thinking about it because of most places they use Moodle and Blackboard. That York uses Moodle for most of it, and let's say the staff and faculty that we have, if they're most likely going to offer a workshop or something like that on the side, there's a probability that they want that integrated with their Moodle course, because we don't want to duplicate things and things like that. So I know you said that it integrates. How well does it integrate, or is there documentation for it?
Yeah. How well is a good question. It's a tough question, but I've seen it in Canvas, for example, in Moodle. I've seen some screenshots. So it's possible, you know, how well that works, then that's a good question.
Yeah, we actually have our own Big Blue Button project here at CDOT as well. And using the LTI, we were able to take it and integrate it into edX as well. So it wasn't too difficult.
Great. You should try it. I think the point of the open source also thing is, you know, there is no risk in trying. You only can get smarter doing it. If it's possible. Yes.
I wonder if you could do a poll in this room, who's taking a Moodle course?
Let's do it. Moodle?
Moodle, or, and no, MOOC, sorry, I meant MOOC.
Okay, so now let's reset that. So now MOOC, a MOOC course. Great. Well, you guys should try a MOOC course. Like I see a lot of green shirts. I assume you are students, right? Take one, even if you drop, like 90% drop the course anyway, but you get the experience, and you know, the day you need it. You know, one of the things that amazes me the most is the catalog. You could learn anything right now. And if you don't know, if you want suggestions to learn things, go for data science. For example, like banks are crazy. The financial sector is crazy about it. So it's definitely a skill for the future. Good to have, like for everyone to have. My 2 cents. Any other comments or questions or something you want to share?
Sort of out of time.
Out of time, that's a good one to share. So thank you so much.
Not to be too subtle about it.
I appreciate it. Thank you for your. Thank you.